Shaun King defends buying a $40,000 guard dog and complains he can't get a firearm. Now, what's crazy is imagine having the excess money to purchase a dog that costs $40,000. So apparently, a controversial activist, Shaun King, tried Tuesday to justify his reported $40,000 purchase of a hulking guard dog as protection from, in quotes, white supremacists, but failed to explain why his Progressive Political Action Committee picked up the tab. In a rambling Instagram post, King also railed against strict gun control laws in New York and New Jersey, insisting they kept him from arming himself to protect his wife and kids from death threats purportedly made by police, military snipers, and white supremacist groups. I have to say some things that I've worked hard to keep private for the safety and security of my family, he began his statement. But I need you to know this so that you understand why our family not only needs a guard dog at home, but 24/7 security wherever we go. King then ranted about restrictive firearms regulation. Before you talk about how I should defend myself with guns, New York City won't even allow me to have a gun, and New Jersey doesn't have stand your ground laws, and hardly allows you to even own guns, he wrote. Although here's the thing, have you ever considered moving to a different state where the gun laws are more generous? So, in follow up post, King also issued an unhinged threat against the MFers that won't leave me and my wife and kids alone. Warning, I'm about to return this pain back to you. I don't think it's really ever a good idea to basically threaten people, like, at all. I've been far too kind to all of you that have disrupted my life and made my wife and kids cry, he wrote. Not going to accept it, cross my family again, and see what happens. King added, ominously, and I'm backdating this promise a few years. Oh, that's a really weird statement. So King's comments came after the Washington Free Beacon reported Monday that his grassroots law pack, which seeks to end oppressive policing, incarceration, and injustice, apparently made a pair of payments totaling $40,650 to Potrero Performance Dogs for a Mastiff named Mars. Now, here's the thing, right? Personally, I don't really understand spending $40,000 for any dog at all. I do understand maybe potentially spending like 40K a year or 20K a year or even $100,000 a year, depending on like your income, your net worth, all that kind of stuff on security. But specifically on a dog, not really. I don't really understand that. There are some very, very well trained dogs. The only thing that I'm always worried about when someone ends up making like a big purchase for a dog or something and they're trying to like trust their life with this dog is that if your dog screws up where they don't end up defending you but they just attack another person, you're going to be held responsible for that. Like if they were not defending you and they just went out and attacked someone, you are going to be held responsible, right? You could have the best trained dog, but if for some reason they just crack, you could be screwed, right? I like the idea of like having a dog that is well trained, not for 40,000, but is well trained, that you also just treat them almost like a family member, right? Because the thing is, if a dog loves you enough, they're probably going to protect you regardless. But to rely on the protection of a dog, I feel like isn't really that smart. And I don't really know who Sean King is at all. Like, personally, I just don't know. I'm guessing he's some sort of social media person. But either way, like, I feel like this is a really steep price to pay for any dog, regardless of their training. And not to mention, it seems like the way that it was paid for doesn't really look good, right? Like, it'd be one thing if he paid like out of pocket, basically, to fund this security, but it doesn't really look like that is what happened. It looks like he used the pack that's supposed to be to end oppressive policing, incarceration, and injustice as a way to fund his own personal lifestyle, his own personal security, which is kind of shady to me, right? So the Californian-based company specialized in breeding Cane Corsos, a type of mastiff that the American Kennel Club describes as intimidating creatures, would stand nearly 28 inches at the shoulder and often weigh more than 100 pounds each. But King apparently returned the powerful pooch because he's got a little too much energy to be a family dog, Paturo reportedly posted on Instagram. In his statement Tuesday, King insisted he spends more time each day now thinking about how to keep my family safe than I do doing the actual work that I'm called to do. So know this, when you see reports about the money it costs to keep me and my family safe, it's nowhere near enough, not at all, not even close. King continued, white supremacists and people who've meant my family harm have now shown up to our last 3 homes multiple times. Monday's report marked the latest in a series of allegations about the way King, who made a name for himself through the Black Lives Matter movement, has spent money generated through various fundraising efforts. His critics include the mother of 12-year-old police shooting victim Tamar Rice, who accused him of soliciting donations by using her son's name without permission. Personally, I don't understand how you sleep at night, grieving mom Samaria Rice wrote on Instagram last year. Rice also called King, who appears to have recently moved out of a lavish lakefront home in New Jersey, a selfish, self-centered person, and warned that God will deal with you. In 2019, a team of experts claimed to have reviewed more than $34.5 million that King raised since the start of the Black Lives Matter movement and said it found absolutely no evidence that Shaun has ever inappropriately accessed any funds. Now they say that, but spending $40,000 from their pack to purchase a dog, regardless if you gave it back or not, seems like a wrong use for the funds. Now, that being said, from this pack, if this pack basically also, like, you know, was upfront and saying, like, hey, we pay King this amount per month or per year as basically the person that basically runs and owns this pack, I would view it a little bit differently. I'd be like, okay, well, I mean, they're open and honest about doing that. But I feel like that's not really the case. I don't think that's necessarily what's happening. And either way, to raise $34.5 million is crazy. Like, that is a lot of money. That is more money than most people will ever see in their whole life. Like, period. So let's check out some of the comments on this because again, I have no clue who this individual is. I don't know any of the backstory about it or anything like that. Let's see. I take it King lives in New Jersey and works in New York. In light of the new Supreme Court ruling, King should be able to get a carry permit in New Jersey. However, New York will not honor an out of state permit and will not issue one to carry to a non resident as many other states do. So perhaps King should sue New Jersey and New York. Pennsylvania has reciprocity with many other states but not New York because New York does not recognize any out of state permit. However, PA will issue a non resident permit to a resident of New York with a New York permit. It must be done in person and takes about 10 minutes, is good for 5 years, and costs a whopping $20. You see, New York has such high standards to keep New Yorkers safe. It would be funny if it were not so sad because the truth is, New York is not safe and has nothing to do with keeping guns out of the hands of law abiding citizens. Even the cops are getting mugged. A law abiding citizen has a constitutional right to defend themselves with a firearm, even Shaun King. Well, this person seems pretty respectful. Interesting. Oh, retired New York Police Department. So, wife and adult children are active on social media. Have never once mentioned any death threats or security concerns. Right, $40,000 for a dog that you returned because he acted like a dog. You could have bought an entire security force for that much amount. This isn't about security, it's about wasting foundation money for an impulse buy. Ba 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 ba. 1500, go to the dog shelter, $50 plus shots, almost any breed you want. They will be loving and protective. It's free money. Just run to the next incident, cry racism, killing, getting media exposure, raise money, leave. And you want to know how Shaun came to acquire 3 homes. He was also subject for foreclosure for a Walt Disney World vacation condo that he decided to not pay for. Okay, one thing I actually agree with righties on, this dude needs to leave the planet if we're lucky. Maybe Elon has an open slot. Ba 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 ba. I feel sorry for the dog. Ba 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 ba. I don't know, let's see. Anything else interesting? There are no words for how ridiculous this is. He wanted a fighting dog, not a guard dog. You don't need a 40 grand dog for home defense. A Doberman or German Shepherd will do fine. The only reason anybody would pay that kind of money for a dog is if people can gamble on it. I mean, here's the thing, there are some companies that do charge a lot of money for extremely trained, well trained dogs. That being said, I think the biggest issue about this whole thing is that it seems like he used funds that he should not have used to purchase the dog. That's ridiculous. 40K for a dog. Really, I can see if the dog will live for 30 or 40 years, but the life expectancy of a dog is 12 years. Plus, take away 3 for training, then 2 more years of old age where he can barely walk. He didn't pay 40K for a dog. He used PAC funds to purchase a security dog. The dog probably cost about $1,000. The seller probably got another 4K, and the rest was bumped back to King. It's called money laundering. Interesting. I mean, feel free to give your thoughts on this. If you have more, like, I guess, knowledge about who Sean King is, how he made his money, all that kind of stuff, feel free to give your thoughts. I personally have, like, literally no idea. I just don't really like the way that this looks, right? Like, to me, it kind of seems almost like similar to, like, someone who created a charity, then used that charity funds for their own benefit instead of the charity specific, purposes, right? Kind of like, for example, let's say that your charity was to help wounded veterans, right? And you decided that actually some of that money that was donated to that charity for wounded veterans is actually going to go to basically protecting yourself with a $40,000 dog. Like, that's the way that I view it, like, very similar to that. And I don't really like that. Like, that seems kind of shady to me. Like, honestly, it does. Which it would be completely different. Like, if let's say that you created a business and you use that business funds to basically, fund your lifestyle because you own the business. It's a for profit situation. You're not doing it for like a specific cause, right? That people are donating money to it. So I view that differently, but when it's something like a pack or like a charity kind of thing, and like there's like a specific purpose as to what the funds are supposed to be used for, and then someone does this, I feel a little bit icky reading about that. If you want to learn how to get out of debt and master your money, go to 40inbox.com or go down below and see how I got out of debt.